Have you ever noticed that your biggest breakthroughs come not when you are forcing, but when you are sleeping? And perhaps you have awakened from sleep with solutions to problems that plagued you for months. Or perhaps you have fallen asleep, worried, and awakened with inexplicable peace. And if this has happened to you, then you have already experienced what Florence Scovel Shinn called sacred sleep. And what I am about to share with you tonight will change how you understand the 8 hours you spend unconscious every single night. Because those hours are not unconscious at all, but rather the most conscious moments of your entire existence. You can close your eyes now, and everything that needs to reorganize will reorganize while you rest. Because what Florence Scovel Shinn discovered in her small apartment in New York City in 1915 was that sleep is not escape from reality, but rather entry into super-reality, where your subconscious mind has direct, unfiltered access to infinite intelligence, and where every word you speak before surrendering to sleep becomes a decree that works throughout the night, reorganizing your entire energy field while your conscious mind rests. And tonight, you will learn exactly how to activate this sacred sleep so that you wake tomorrow already changed, already shifted, already aligned with what you have been seeking. And not because something magical happened, but because you remembered how to collaborate with the divine intelligence that operates through your subconscious during the 8 hours when your ego is not interfering with the natural flow of grace. Let me tell you about Margaret, who was 62 years old and had been suffering from insomnia for 8 months after losing her administrative position at a law firm where she had worked for 17 years. And every night, she would lie in bed calculating her diminishing savings, which now totaled only $4,267, and wondering how she would survive financially at her age, when most employers seemed to prefer younger candidates. And the harder she tried to fall asleep, the more elusive sleep became, until her days blended into one continuous loop of exhaustion and worry. Margaret lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian house, and her bedroom window faced east, so every morning she was awakened not by choice, but by the harsh sunlight streaming through thin white curtains that she could not afford to replace. And the apartment always felt too cold in winter and too warm in summer, because the heating system was old and unreliable. And on this particular Tuesday night in November, the radiator was making that familiar clanking sound that had become the soundtrack to her sleepless nights. She had tried everything the doctor recommended, including melatonin supplements and chamomile tea, and guided meditation recordings, and progressive muscle relaxation, but nothing worked because her mind would not stop the constant mental calculation of her daily expenses, multiplied by the number of days until her savings would be completely depleted, which according to her projections would happen in approximately 134 days, and this mathematical countdown played on repeat in her head like a broken record that she could not turn off. It was 11:47 p.m. on that Tuesday when Margaret remembered something her sister had shared with her months earlier about Florence Scovel Shinn and the teaching that sleep is not unconsciousness, but superconsciousness. And suddenly, Margaret realized that she had been approaching sleep all wrong by trying to escape her problems, rather than taking them into the sacred space of sleep, where they could be transformed. And so instead of fighting against her worried thoughts, she decided to work with them. Margaret sat up in bed and pulled her worn blue cotton blanket around her shoulders, and she could smell the faint scent of lavender fabric, softener that she had used sparingly because even laundry detergent was now a budget consideration. And she could hear the couple in the apartment below having another one of their muffled arguments through the thin floors, and outside a police siren wailed in the distance. And all of these sounds that usually increased her anxiety suddenly seemed like a symphony of life continuing around her while she prepared to enter sacred sleep. She spoke aloud to the darkness of her bedroom, and her voice sounded smaller than usual in the empty space, but also somehow more certain than it had in months. And she said, "My sleep heals everything, and my dreams create perfect solutions, and I am supplied from infinite source while I rest." And she repeated these words 3 times, feeling something shift in her chest area around her heart. And then she lay back down, and instead of trying to fall asleep, she simply allowed herself to sink into the bed, as if the mattress was a portal to another dimension. The first thing Margaret noticed was that her breathing changed from the shallow, anxious pattern she had become accustomed to into something deeper and more rhythmic, as if her body was remembering how to breathe properly. And then she became aware of a strange tingling sensation starting in her feet and moving slowly up through her legs and into her torso, as if warm honey was being poured through her entire nervous system. And for the first time in 8 months, her mind stopped the financial calculations and instead began to drift into images of possibility. Margaret slept for 9 hours and 14 minutes that night, which was the longest uninterrupted sleep she had experienced since losing her job. And when she awakened at 7:01 a.m. on Wednesday morning, she felt something that she had almost forgotten existed, which was the sensation of being rested. And when she sat up in bed, the first thing she noticed was that the anxiety knot that had taken up permanent residence in her stomach for 8 months was simply gone, not diminished, but completely absent, as if it had never existed. But more remarkable than the physical sensation of rest was the mental clarity that Margaret experienced, because instead of awakening to the familiar mental loop of worry, she found herself thinking about specific actions she could take, including reaching out to former colleagues and exploring part-time consulting opportunities, and updating her resume to highlight her decades of experience as an asset rather than a liability. And these thoughts arrived not as desperate grasping, but as clear guidance that felt both practical and inspired. On Thursday morning, Margaret received a phone call at 9:37 a.m. from her former colleague Janet, who said that a small nonprofit organization was looking for someone with exactly Margaret's experience to help them organize their legal documentation for a grant application, and the position would pay $1,500 for approximately 3 weeks of work. And when Margaret asked how Janet had thought of her, Janet said, "I woke up yesterday morning and your name was just in my head, so I decided to call." By Friday evening, Margaret had not only secured the nonprofit consulting position, but had also connected with 2 other potential clients through referrals. And her savings account balance was no longer decreasing, but stable with income projections for the following month, totaling approximately $3,400. And more importantly, her relationship with sleep had been permanently transformed, because she now understood that those 8 hours of rest were not lost time, but rather her most productive hours, when her subconscious collaborated directly with infinite intelligence. If this teaching resonates with you, and if you feel you were guided here, then touch the subscribe button now. And it is not for me, but it is so that you receive each new teaching from Florence Scovel Shinn at the exact moment your soul needs it, because there is divine timing in everything, including when certain wisdom enters your life. And by subscribing, you align yourself with that perfect timing, and you become part of a growing community of souls who understand that spiritual law operates even while we sleep. And in the comments, write only these words: sacred sleep. And this is not an affirmation, but a decree. And when you write these words, you activate collective witness, and thousands of souls write these same words. And the field strengthens for everyone, because spiritual law responds to collective intention, and your individual decree becomes part of a larger symphony of consciousness that creates transformation, not just for you, but for all who participate in this sacred communion. If you want to support this spiritual work, there is a donation link in the description, and when you donate, you can also leave a personal message about what you are going through, and you will receive a personal response with guidance. Because this work is sustained by the generosity of those who understand that spiritual teaching is sacred exchange. And your contribution helps ensure that these teachings reach every soul who needs them, regardless of their financial circumstances. If you choose not to do this right now, that is perfectly fine, and your path is your own. But know that this is the moment of greatest power, when your consciousness is most open and receptive, so do it if you feel aligned, because action taken from inspiration creates momentum that carries you forward into your highest good, and hesitation often indicates the ego trying to prevent transformation. Now you can relax completely, and you do not need to do anything else because everything I will share from this moment forward enters you while you rest, and your subconscious is awake and absorbing every word. Even if your conscious mind drifts into sleep, and if you fall asleep in the middle, that is perfect, because when you wake, the seed will already be planted deep in your psyche where it can sprout into manifestation. Florence Scovel Shinn lived in a time when women were expected to occupy themselves with domestic concerns, and spiritual matters were considered the domain of male religious authorities. But Florence had discovered something that the established religious institutions did not understand, which was that every human being has direct access to divine intelligence through the gateway of sleep. And this discovery came to her not through theological study, but through personal crisis during the winter of 1915, when she was facing her own period of financial uncertainty and sleepless nights. In her small apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, Florence would lie awake, calculating her expenses, just as Margaret would do nearly 100 years later, and the gas lamps flickered shadows on the wallpapered walls, while horse-drawn carriages clip-clopped along the cobblestone streets below, and the city never truly slept, but moved through different rhythms of activity, from the bustling daylight hours to the quieter evening moments when people gathered around kitchen tables for simple meals and conversations about the changing world. Florence had been supporting herself through her metaphysical practice, but clients were few and money was scarce, and she found herself trapped in the same cycle that millions of people experience, where financial worry creates insomnia, and insomnia creates exhaustion, and exhaustion makes everything seem more difficult than it actually is. And this cycle continued for several weeks until one night when Florence was so exhausted that she simply gave up trying to control her circumstances and instead decided to experiment with complete surrender. It was 2:37 a.m. on a Thursday in February, and snow was falling heavily outside her window, creating that peculiar silence that comes with snowfall when all the usual city sounds are muffled and softened. And Florence sat up in her narrow bed and spoke to the darkness as if addressing a trusted friend, and she said, "I give up trying to figure this out, and I place everything in divine hands, and I ask that while I sleep, divine intelligence work through me to create perfect solutions." What happened next would become the foundation for all of Florence Scovel Shinn's future teaching. Because instead of the usual fitful sleep filled with anxiety dreams, she experienced what she later described as the most profound 8 hours of her life, where she dreamed not of problems, but of solutions. And she awakened with a complete understanding of how the subconscious mind during sleep becomes a direct channel for divine guidance and manifestation. Florence began to teach this principle to her clients, and one of the first people to experience transformation through sacred sleep was Dorothy, who was 58 years old and had been a professional pianist until arthritis began to affect the movement in her right hand, and after months of medical treatments that provided no relief, Dorothy was facing the end of her musical career and the loss of her primary source of income and identity. Dorothy lived in a brownstone apartment that she rented 2 blocks from Carnegie Hall, and every morning she would wake to the sound of other musicians practicing in nearby buildings, and these sounds that had once filled her with inspiration now filled her with grief, because they reminded her of everything she was losing, and her right hand, which had once moved with fluid grace across piano keys, now felt stiff and painful, and sometimes would not respond to her mental commands. The evening that Dorothy came to see Florence, it was raining heavily, and the gaslight in Florence's apartment created a warm golden glow that contrasted with the gray October sky visible through the window. And Dorothy sat in a worn velvet armchair holding a cup of chamomile tea that Florence had prepared, and the steam rose from the cup creating small spirals in the lamplight, and Dorothy's eyes were red from crying because she had just come from another disappointing doctor's appointment. Florence listened to Dorothy's story and then shared something that no doctor had considered, which was that the body has its own intelligence that operates most powerfully during sleep when the conscious mind is not interfering with natural healing processes. And Florence explained that Dorothy's subconscious mind during sleep had direct access to the divine blueprint for perfect health, and that this blueprint could override any physical limitation when accessed correctly. Florence taught Dorothy to speak specific words before falling asleep each night. And these words were not requests or pleadings, but decrees spoken with authority and conviction. And the words were, "My hands are instruments of divine music, and perfect movement flows through them while I sleep. And divine intelligence heals and restores every cell while I rest and..." Dorothy was instructed to repeat these words 3 times each night before surrendering to sleep. The first night Dorothy followed Florence's instruction, she experienced the deepest sleep she had enjoyed in months, and she dreamed of playing piano. But in the dream, her hands moved with even greater fluidity than they had possessed before the arthritis began. And in the dream, she could feel warm, golden light flowing from her heart, down through her arms and into her hands. And when she awakened, she noticed that the constant aching in her right hand had diminished significantly. By the 3rd night, Dorothy was experiencing dreams that seemed more like visions, where she saw herself performing specific hand exercises that she had never learned. And when she awakened, she found herself compelled to practice these exercises. And remarkably, her hand responded with increasing flexibility. And by the 7th morning, Dorothy discovered that she could play simple scales without pain for the first time in 6 months. Dorothy continued the sacred sleep practice for 3 weeks, and during this time her hand movement improved dramatically, and the arthritis pain virtually disappeared. And when she returned to Florence's apartment for a follow-up consultation, she demonstrated her renewed dexterity by playing a complex Chopin etude on Florence's small, upright piano, and tears of gratitude streamed down both women's faces as the music filled the apartment. But what impressed Florence even more than Dorothy's physical healing was the profound change in Dorothy's entire demeanor, because she had transformed from a woman defeated by circumstances into someone who understood her own divine power. And Dorothy told Florence that the most remarkable aspect of the experience was not just the healing, but the realization that she had access to infinite intelligence whenever she surrendered into sleep. This principle that Florence discovered through Dorothy's healing and through her own experience became the foundation for everything she would later teach about manifestation and spiritual law, because she understood that the subconscious mind during sleep has no resistance to divine truth, and therefore can accept and implement spiritual principles that the conscious mind might reject or doubt during waking hours. During REM sleep, the ego structure temporarily dissolves, and what remains is pure consciousness, connected directly to infinite intelligence. And this is why the last thoughts before sleep become the first causes of tomorrow's experiences, and why speaking decrees before sleeping is infinitely more powerful than any daytime affirmation, because there is no mental interference with the natural flow of divine order. While your mind sleeps, your soul speaks directly to infinite intelligence, and arrangements are made in the invisible realm that manifest as synchronicities and opportunities and healings in the physical realm. And you do not need to understand the mechanism, but only to trust the process and to consistently use the 8 hours of sleep as sacred time for collaboration with divine mind. The human brain produces different types of electrical activity throughout the day, and as you move from waking consciousness through the various stages of sleep, your brain waves shift from the rapid beta frequencies associated with active thinking to the slower alpha and theta frequencies that allow access to subconscious programming, and finally into delta waves during deep sleep. When the conscious mind completely surrenders control and the subconscious operates without any interference. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this process intuitively, long before neuroscience could measure brainwave patterns, because she recognized that the last words spoken before sleep penetrate directly into the subconscious without passing through the filters of logic and doubt that operate during waking consciousness. And this is why she taught that the moment before sleep is the most powerful time for decreeing, because the words enter the mind at the exact moment when resistance is lowest. The conscious mind during waking hours functions like a security guard that examines every thought and belief for consistency with existing mental patterns. And if a new idea conflicts with established beliefs, the conscious mind will reject it or modify it to fit existing paradigms. But during the transition into sleep, this security guard gradually relaxes its vigilance until finally it falls asleep, completely leaving the subconscious wide open to receive new programming. When you speak a decree in the moments before sleep, you are essentially installing new software into your subconscious computer while the virus protection is offline, and this new programming then operates throughout the night, reorganizing your entire energy field and aligning your vibration with the reality described in your decree. And by morning, your entire electromagnetic signature has shifted to match the words you spoke before sleeping. Robert was 54 years old and worked as a senior accountant for a mid-sized manufacturing company, where he had been employed for 19 years, and he lived with his wife Sharon in a modest 2-story house in a middle-class neighborhood where they had raised their daughter Emily, who was now a junior at the state university studying pre-med, and their life had been comfortable and predictable until the company began experiencing financial difficulties and started laying off employees. Robert's department had been reduced from 8 accountants to 4 over the course of 6 months, and the remaining employees were expected to handle the same workload with half the staff. And Robert found himself working 12-hour days just to keep up with the essential tasks, and the stress was affecting his sleep and his health, and his relationship with Sharon, who had become increasingly worried about their financial security. The situation reached a crisis point in October when Robert learned that the company was considering closing his department entirely and outsourcing all accounting functions to a firm in another state, and Robert calculated that their savings would last approximately 4 months if he lost his job, and after that they would need to consider selling the house, and Emily would probably need to transfer to a less expensive school and complete her education with student loans. On Tuesday night, November 3rd, Robert lay in bed at 11:43 p.m. staring at the ceiling of their bedroom, which Sharon had painted pale blue 3 years earlier during a weekend home improvement project, and the street light outside their window cast familiar shadows through the mini blinds, creating a pattern of light and dark stripes across the opposite wall. And Robert could hear the old furnace cycling on and off in the basement, and the sound of a neighbor's dog barking several houses away. Robert had always been a practical man who believed in hard work and careful planning, and he had never considered himself spiritual or mystical, but desperation has a way of opening the mind to possibilities that might otherwise be dismissed. And Sharon had mentioned something she had read about Florence Scovel Shinn and the power of spoken word, and although Robert's rational mind was skeptical, his exhausted heart was willing to try anything. Robert sat up in bed and looked at Sharon, who was sleeping peacefully beside him, and he could see the worry lines around her eyes, even in sleep, and he realized that his financial anxiety was affecting not just his own well-being, but also the woman he loved and the daughter they both wanted to support through college. And this realization gave him the motivation to experiment with something completely outside his normal approach to problem-solving. Robert spoke quietly so as not to wake Sharon, and his voice sounded strange to him in the darkness because he was not accustomed to speaking about spiritual matters. But he felt compelled to try the approach that Florence Scovel Shinn had taught, and he said, "I am supplied from infinite source while I sleep, and perfect employment opportunities come to me effortlessly, and I trust divine intelligence to provide exactly what I need." And he repeated these words 3 times, feeling somewhat foolish, but also somehow relieved. The moment Robert finished speaking the words, he noticed that his breathing changed from the shallow, anxious pattern he had maintained for weeks into something deeper and more natural, as if his nervous system had suddenly remembered how to relax. And then he became aware of a subtle tingling sensation that started in his chest and spread outward through his entire body. And instead of the usual mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios, his mind began to drift into peaceful emptiness. Robert slept for 7 hours and 42 minutes that night, which was the longest uninterrupted sleep he had experienced in over a month. And when he awakened, at 6:15 a.m. on Wednesday morning, he felt not only rested, but somehow different, as if something fundamental had shifted in his relationship to his circumstances. and instead of awakening to anxiety, he found himself thinking clearly about practical steps he could take to improve his situation. During his lunch break on Wednesday, Robert decided to call his former colleague Mike, who had left the company 2 years earlier, to start his own consulting practice, and Mike mentioned that he had been looking for someone with Robert's specific expertise to help with a project for a growing tech startup. And the timing was perfect because the client needed someone who could start immediately and work flexible hours. By Thursday afternoon, Robert had met with the startup's CEO and been offered a contract position that would pay 30% more than his current salary and provide the flexibility to work from home 3 days per week. And when he gave his notice to his current employer, they actually seemed relieved because they had been planning to eliminate his position anyway, and this way they could avoid paying severance. On Friday evening, Robert sat in the same bedroom where he had spoken his first decree just 3 nights earlier, and he marveled at how quickly everything had transformed, and he realized that the change had begun the moment he spoke those words before sleep. Not because the words themselves had magical power, but because they had aligned his subconscious mind with possibility rather than limitation. Robert continued to practice speaking decrees before sleep every night, even after his financial situation stabilized, because he had discovered something that his practical, rational mind had never considered, which was that there is an intelligence operating in the universe that responds to clear-spoken intention. And this intelligence is most accessible during the sacred time of sleep, when the ego steps aside and allows divine order to flow freely. The difference between a decree spoken during the day and a decree spoken before sleep is like the difference between planting a seed in rocky soil and planting the same seed in rich, fertile earth. Because during waking hours, the conscious mind creates resistance with doubts and fears and limiting beliefs. But during sleep, the subconscious receives the decree without question and immediately begins reorganizing your entire energy field to match the reality described in your words. You do not need to believe in the mechanism, but only to test the process and speak your truth before surrendering to sleep and allow divine intelligence to work through your subconscious while you rest, because your sleeping mind has access to infinite creative power that your waking mind cannot even imagine, and tomorrow you will awaken already aligned with whatever you have decreed. During the day, you wear a personality like clothing that has been selected based on social expectations and past experiences, and this personality includes beliefs about what you can and cannot do, and what you deserve, and what is possible for someone with your background and circumstances. But this personality is not your true identity. It is simply a collection of learned responses that you have accumulated over years of living in a world that often teaches limitation rather than infinite possibility. Your true identity exists in the realm of pure consciousness, where there are no limitations based on age or education or past mistakes or current circumstances, and this true identity knows itself as an expression of divine creativity with unlimited access to intelligence and resources and love. And this identity is not something you must become. It is what you already are underneath all the layers of conditioning that you have accepted as truth. The personality that you wear during waking hours is like an actor's costume that serves a function for playing a specific role. But when you take off the costume at the end of the day, what remains is the eternal being who is never limited by the role. And when you fall asleep each night, the personality costume is set aside and your true divine identity emerges. And if you speak consciously to this true identity before sleep, you can program it to express more fully through your personality. The following day, Helen was 59 years old and had worked as a registered nurse for 31 years in the cardiac unit of a large metropolitan hospital. And over the decades, she had saved thousands of lives and comforted countless families during their most difficult moments. But somewhere along the way, Helen had begun to feel invisible and unappreciated, as if her decades of service had blended into the institutional machinery, and she was just another interchangeable part. Helen lived alone in a small apartment 15 minutes from the hospital, and her life had fallen into a routine of 12-hour shifts, followed by exhausted sleep, and then more 12-hour shifts, and she rarely socialized with colleagues outside of work and had lost touch with most of her old friends. And although she was good at her job and patients often thanked her for her kindness, she felt as if she was sleepwalking through her life rather than truly living. The night that everything changed for Helen was a Thursday in September, and she had just finished a particularly difficult shift where, despite her best efforts and the efforts of the entire medical team, they had lost a patient who was only 40, 2 years old, and had 2 young children. And as Helen drove home through the quiet streets at 11:15 p.m., she found herself questioning whether her work really mattered and whether she had made any meaningful difference in the world. Helen's apartment was on the second floor of a converted house, and when she climbed the narrow stairs to her front door, she felt the weight of 31 years of accumulated fatigue and emotional exhaustion. And her small living room contained a worn sofa and a television and a bookshelf filled with medical textbooks and romance novels, and the walls were bare except for her nursing degree and a single photograph of her parents who had both passed away several years earlier. Helen sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing her scrubs, and she could smell the familiar hospital scent of disinfectant that seemed to cling to her skin and hair. No matter how thoroughly she showered, and she stared at her reflection in the dresser mirror and saw a tired, middle-aged woman with gray roots showing in her brown hair and worry lines around her eyes, and she wondered when she had become so ordinary and unremarkable. But then Helen remembered something she had read years earlier in a book about Florence Scovel Shinn and the teaching that every person has a divine identity that transcends all temporary circumstances, and that this identity can be accessed and activated through conscious connection during sleep. And although Helen had forgotten about this teaching for many years, something about her emotional state that night made her desperate enough to try anything. Helen changed into her nightgown, which was a simple cotton garment that she had owned for several years, and she turned off all the lights except for the small lamp beside her bed. And she sat quietly for a few moments, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into sleep. And she could hear a train whistle in the distance, and the hum of the refrigerator in her small kitchen, and the ticking of the old clock on her nightstand. Helen spoke to her reflection in the dark window across from her bed, and her voice sounded different than usual, more confident and clear, as if she was speaking not as the tired nurse who felt invisible, but as the divine being who knew her true worth. And she said, "I am a healing presence, and my true power reveals itself while I sleep, and every person I touch is blessed by divine love flowing through me." And she repeated these words 3 times, feeling something shift deep in her chest. The moment Helen finished speaking these words, she experienced something she had never felt before, which was a sense of her own magnitude and importance, not based on external recognition, but on an internal knowing that she was a channel for divine healing, and that every act of service she had performed over 31 years had been sacred work that had touched countless lives in ways she could not even measure. Helen slept more deeply that night than she had in months, and she dreamed that she was standing in a great cathedral filled with golden light, and hundreds of people were there, and she realized that these were all the patients and families whose lives she had touched over the years, and they were all thanking her, not just for her medical skills, but for the love and compassion that she had brought to their darkest moments. When Helen awakened at 5:30 a.m. on Friday morning, she felt as if she was inhabiting her body differently, as if the same physical form was now expressing a completely different energy. And when she looked in the mirror, she saw not a tired, unremarkable nurse, but a powerful healing presence disguised as an ordinary woman. And this shift in internal identity changed everything about how she moved through her day. Helen arrived at the hospital that morning, 15 minutes early as usual, but her supervisor Nancy noticed immediately that something was different about Helen's energy. And throughout the day, patients and family members seemed to respond to Helen with unusual warmth and gratitude, and by the end of her shift, Helen had received more positive feedback than she typically received in an entire week. On Saturday afternoon, Nancy asked Helen to stay after her shift for a brief conversation, and Helen assumed she was in trouble for something. But instead, Nancy offered her a promotion to charge nurse position that would include a significant salary increase and additional responsibilities. and when Helen asked why she was being considered for the promotion, Nancy said that several patients and their families had specifically mentioned Helen's exceptional care and presence. Helen continued to speak to her divine identity before sleep every night, and over the following weeks, she noticed that opportunities and recognition seemed to flow to her effortlessly, and more importantly, she felt a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment that had been missing from her work for years, and she realized that the promotion and recognition were simply external reflections of the internal transformation that had occurred when she connected with her true identity. The identity that emerges during sleep is not bound by the limitations that your waking personality has accepted, and when you speak to this true identity before sleep, you give it permission to express more fully through your daily life, and you begin to experience yourself not as a limited human, struggling with circumstances, but as divine consciousness, having a human experience with unlimited creative power. Your divine identity knows itself as naturally abundant and naturally loved and naturally creative and naturally powerful. And when you consistently connect with this identity before sleep, it begins to override the programming of limitation that your personality has accumulated, and your external life begins to mirror the unlimited nature of your true self. While you rest tonight, your true identity is awakening, and tomorrow you will move through your day with greater confidence and clarity, because you have remembered who you really are beneath all the roles and responsibilities and circumstances that seem to define you. And this remembering is not something you must achieve, but something you simply allow to emerge through the sacred portal of sleep. The human mind has developed elaborate defense mechanisms over millions of years of evolution, and these mechanisms are designed to protect you from physical and emotional danger by creating resistance to anything unfamiliar or potentially threatening. And while these protective patterns served an important function for survival in primitive environments, they often create obstacles to growth and transformation in modern life, where the greatest dangers are not physical predators, but limiting beliefs and missed opportunities. During waking consciousness, the ego operates like a security system that constantly scans for potential threats to your established identity. And when you attempt to claim greater good or step into expanded possibility, the ego interprets this as dangerous change and activates resistance patterns, including doubt and fear and self-sabotage, and logical arguments for why transformation is impossible or unwise. But during sleep, the ego security system powers down for maintenance and regeneration, and this creates a window of opportunity when new beliefs and possibilities can be installed in your subconscious without triggering the usual defensive responses. And this is why resistance that seems overwhelming during the day often dissolves effortlessly during sleep. If you know how to work with the natural rhythm of consciousness, Florence Scovel Shinn taught that resistance is not an enemy to be fought, but rather a signal that transformation is attempting to occur. And she discovered that the most effective way to dissolve resistance is not through force or willpower, but through surrender into the intelligence that operates during sleep. And she learned to say to her students, "Do not fight your resistance, simply sleep through it." James was 61 years old and had recently retired after 37 years as a high school principal in a suburban school district. And although he had looked forward to retirement for years, he found himself struggling with depression and a sense of purposelessness that he had not anticipated, and the days seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of him with no structure or meaning. And he often wondered if his best years were behind him. James lived with his wife Carol in the same house where they had raised their 3 children, and now that the children were grown and gone, the house felt too large and too quiet, and James found himself sitting in his home office for hours, staring at the computer screen or wandering through the empty rooms trying to figure out how to fill the time. And Carol had suggested that he might benefit from counseling, but James was too proud to admit that he needed help. The depression had been building for several months, and James had tried to manage it through his usual approach of logical analysis and willpower. But the more he tried to think his way out of his emotional state, the worse it seemed to become, and he found himself caught in a cycle of negative thinking that seemed to feed on itself and grow stronger with each passing day. On Sunday evening in October, James was sitting in his living room watching television, but not really paying attention to the program, and Carol was reading a book about spiritual healing that her sister had recommended, and Carol mentioned something she had just read about Florence Scovel Shinn and the teaching that resistance dissolves naturally during sleep. And James dismissed the idea as New Age nonsense, but something about it stayed with him. James had always been a rational man who believed in facts and evidence, and he had little patience for what he considered superstitious thinking. But his current situation was so uncomfortable that he was becoming willing to consider approaches that he would normally reject. And that night, as he lay in bed, unable to sleep for the third consecutive night, he decided to experiment with the technique that Carol had described. James felt foolish speaking to an empty room, but his desperation overcame his skepticism, and he said out loud, "I release all resistance to my highest good, and I allow perfect solutions to emerge while I sleep, and divine intelligence guides me to my next chapter of purpose and meaning." And he repeated these words 3 times, feeling embarrassed, but also strangely relieved to be taking some kind of action. The first night, James noticed that although he still experienced racing thoughts and restless energy, these uncomfortable feelings seemed less intense and more manageable, as if they were happening to someone else rather than consuming his entire awareness. And he slept for 6 hours, which was an improvement over the 3 to 4 hour nights he had been experiencing by the third night. James realized that his internal dialogue had begun to change from the constant rehearsal of everything that was wrong with his life to occasional thoughts about possibilities he had not considered, and he found himself remembering activities and interests that had brought him joy years earlier before he became consumed with the responsibilities of career and family. On the 7th morning, James awakened with an unusual sense of energy and clarity, and instead of lying in bed, dreading another purposeless day, he found himself thinking about the woodworking shop in his basement that he had not used in over 15 years, and he remembered how much pleasure he had once derived from creating beautiful objects. With his hands, James spent the morning cleaning and organizing his workshop, and by afternoon he was absorbed in a small project that he had started decades earlier but never finished, and the familiar rhythm of measuring and cutting and sanding brought back a sense of competence and creativity that he had forgotten he possessed, and for the first time in months he felt genuinely engaged with something meaningful. Over the following week, James continued the nightly practice of releasing resistance through sleep, and he began to notice that opportunities and ideas seemed to appear without effort, including a phone call from the local community college asking if he would be interested in teaching a part-time adult education class, and an invitation from his neighbor to join a group of retired men who volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. By the end of the month, James had accepted both opportunities and had also begun selling some of his woodworking projects at a local craft fair. And most importantly, his depression had lifted completely. Not because his external circumstances had changed dramatically, but because his internal resistance to this new phase of life had dissolved, and he was able to embrace retirement as an opportunity for growth rather than a loss of identity. James realized that each night when he spoke the words about releasing resistance, he was essentially giving his subconscious permission to let go of the protective patterns that were no longer serving him. And during sleep, these patterns would dissolve naturally, without the usual struggle and effort that characterized his daytime attempts at change. The 7 types of resistance that James experienced and released through sleep were: first, the logical mind that insisted retirement should be depressing. Second, the social programming that equated worth with productivity. Third, the family pattern of worrying about the future. Fourth, the religious guilt about enjoying life. Fifth, the fear that happiness would not last. Sixth, the attachment to suffering as identity. And seventh, the belief that change requires struggle. But on the 8th night, when James spoke his usual words about releasing resistance, he noticed that the words felt different somehow, lighter and more natural, as if they were describing something that had already happened rather than something he was trying to achieve. And he realized that the resistance had simply dissolved like ice melting in warm water. resistance dissolves in the ocean of sleep, because during sleep, you are temporarily freed from the ego structures that create and maintain limiting patterns. And when you consciously surrender resistance before sleep, you give your subconscious permission to release whatever is preventing your highest good from manifesting. And this release happens naturally, without force or struggle. You do not need to understand what specific resistances you are carrying or analyze why they exist, because the intelligence that operates during sleep can see and dissolve patterns that are invisible to your conscious mind. And all you need to do is speak your willingness to release whatever is blocking your good, and then trust the process of sacred sleep to do the rest. While you rest tonight, any resistance that has been preventing your transformation is already beginning to dissolve, and not because you are fighting against it, but because you are allowing something greater to move through you. And tomorrow, you will discover that obstacles that seemed immovable have simply disappeared like mist evaporating in sunlight. Dreams are the native language of the subconscious mind. And while the conscious mind communicates through words and logical concepts, the subconscious speaks fluent symbol and metaphor. And during sleep, when the rational mind steps aside, the subconscious receives direct communication from infinite intelligence and translates this guidance into the imagery and narrative of dreams. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that dreams are not random neurological activity, as modern science often suggests, but rather purposeful communication from the divine mind that knows exactly what you need and when you need it. And she taught her students to pay attention to their dreams, not as fortune-telling, but as receiving mail from the universe with specific guidance for their current circumstances and future direction. The symbols that appear in dreams often precede similar symbols in waking life, and this is because the subconscious mind during sleep has access to information about probable futures based on your current energy patterns and beliefs, and dreams serve as preview screenings for what wants to manifest in your physical experience. And when you learn to read dream symbols, you gain valuable insight into the movements of divine intelligence. But dreams do more than provide information. They also perform spiritual preparation by allowing you to experience transformation in the safety of sleep before it manifests in waking life. And this preparation is essential because sudden change in physical reality can be overwhelming. But when change is rehearsed first in dreams, the conscious mind is already familiar with the new reality and can accept it more easily. Patricia was 56 years old and had been widowed for 2 years after her husband Michael died suddenly from a heart attack, and although friends and family encouraged her to consider dating again, Patricia felt paralyzed by grief and fear and could not imagine opening her heart to love another person, and she had isolated herself increasingly from social situations where she might meet someone, and her loneliness had become her primary companion. Patricia lived in the same suburban house where she and Michael had spent 18 years of marriage, and everywhere she looked, there were reminders of their life together, from the kitchen table where they had shared thousands of meals to the garden where Michael had planted roses for their anniversary each year. And Patricia found comfort in these memories, but also felt trapped by them, as if moving forward would betray the love they had shared. Patricia worked part-time as a librarian at the local branch, and her colleagues had begun to worry about her because she seemed to grow more withdrawn with each passing month, and when they invited her to social gatherings, she always declined with polite excuses, and they could see that her grief was hardening into a protective shell that was preventing any possibility of future happiness. On Tuesday night in November, Patricia was lying in bed reading one of the romance novels that had always been her guilty pleasure. But now the stories of love and connection only emphasized her own isolation. And she closed the book and turned off the bedside lamp and lay in the darkness, feeling the familiar ache of loneliness that had become her constant companion. Patricia had been having trouble sleeping since Michael's death, and her doctor had prescribed medication, but she preferred to avoid taking pills whenever possible, and instead, she often lay awake for hours, remembering conversations with Michael, or wondering what he would want her to do with her life. And on this particular night, she found herself speaking to Michael as if he could hear her and asking him to somehow let her know whether it was okay for her to consider loving again. Patricia finally fell asleep around 2 a.m., and she immediately entered a vivid dream where she was standing in front of a red door that seemed familiar, but she could not remember where she had seen it, and the door was closed, but she could see warm golden light emanating from around the edges, and she felt drawn to open the door. But when she reached for the handle, she discovered that it was locked, and she could not find a key. The dream felt significant to Patricia in a way that she could not explain. And when she awakened the next morning, she found herself thinking about the red door throughout the day and wondering what it might mean, and she had never paid much attention to her dreams before, but something about this dream felt like a message that she was supposed to understand. The second night, Patricia dreamed about the same red door, but this time it was slightly ajar, and the golden light streaming through the opening was brighter and more inviting, and in the dream she could hear the sound of gentle laughter and conversation coming from the other side of the door, as if there was a gathering of happy people, and she felt a longing to join them, but when she tried to push the door open, it would only move a few inches. On the third night, the red door in Patricia's dream was wide open, and she could see through it into a beautiful garden where people were gathered around, tables enjoying a meal together, and the scene was filled with warmth and joy and connection. And Patricia walked through the doorway into the garden and immediately felt a sense of belonging that she had not experienced since before Michael's death. Patricia awakened from the third dream, feeling different, somehow lighter, and more hopeful, as if something that had been locked inside her chest had finally been released. And although she still missed Michael terribly, she no longer felt guilty about the possibility of future happiness, and she realized that the dreams had been preparing her to open her heart again. On Thursday afternoon, Patricia was walking through downtown running errands when she noticed a small bookstore that she had never seen before, and painted on the front of the building was a red door that was identical to the door in her dreams. And Patricia stood on the sidewalk, staring at the door, feeling a mixture of excitement and disbelief, and wondering if this could possibly be a coincidence. Patricia entered the bookstore and discovered that it was hosting a book club meeting that evening, and the group was discussing a novel about second chances in love. And the woman behind the counter mentioned that they always welcomed new members, and Patricia found herself accepting the invitation before her rational mind could create reasons to decline. That evening, Patricia attended her first book club meeting in over 2 years, and she met a group of warm, welcoming people who shared her love of literature, and among them was a gentle man named David, who was 62 years old and had also lost his spouse several years earlier, and who seemed to understand her journey in a way that felt both comfortable and hopeful. Over the following weeks, Patricia attended every book club meeting, and she and David began having coffee together after the discussions, and their friendship gradually deepened into something more meaningful. And Patricia realized that the dreams had been preparing her not just to open her heart, but to recognize the right person. When he appeared, Patricia later learned that David had been attending the book club for only 3 weeks before she arrived, and that he had been praying for someone to enter his life who would understand his experience of loss and love, and they both marveled at the timing that had brought them together. And Patricia understood that the red door in her dreams had been a symbol of the opening that was preparing to occur in her life. The dreams had served 3 purposes for Patricia. First, they had gradually dissolved her resistance to new love. Second, they had prepared her emotionally for the experience of connection. And third, they had guided her to the specific location where she would meet David. And this is how divine intelligence operates through dreams, by providing both internal preparation and external guidance. Dreams are previews of coming attractions in your life, and when you pay attention to recurring symbols or themes in your dreams, you can often identify opportunities or relationships or creative projects that are preparing to manifest. And dreams also serve as spiritual rehearsals that allow you to practice new ways of being before they are required in waking life. Your dreams tonight are already preparing you for transformations that are approaching in your life. And the symbols and stories that unfold during sleep are not random entertainment, but rather purposeful communication from the part of you. that knows your highest path and can see beyond the limitations of current circumstances. While you sleep, your subconscious is receiving detailed guidance about your next steps, and this guidance is being translated into dream symbols that your conscious mind can understand. And tomorrow, when you encounter situations or opportunities that match your dream imagery, you will recognize them as confirmations that you are moving in alignment with divine will. Time in the physical realm operates according to linear progression, where events unfold in sequential order from past through present to future. And this mechanical understanding of time creates anxiety because the mind projects current problems forward and imagines negative outcomes extending indefinitely into the future. But there is another dimension of time that operates according to spiritual law, where everything exists simultaneously in the eternal. Now, divine time does not follow the rules of chronological sequence because in the realm of infinite intelligence, all possibilities exist simultaneously. And what appears to be future manifestation is actually present reality that has not yet descended into physical form. And during sleep, when you are temporarily freed from linear time consciousness, you can access this eternal dimension where your highest good already exists in completed form. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that divine time operates according to perfect order, where everything happens at exactly the right moment for maximum benefit and minimum resistance. And she observed that when people try to force manifestation according to their personal timeline, they often create delays and complications. But when they surrender to divine timing, everything flows with ease and grace. The subconscious mind during sleep operates outside the constraints of linear time and can reorganize your entire energy field to align with solutions that already exist in divine mind. And this reorganization happens instantaneously in spiritual time, even though the physical manifestation may require days or weeks to complete. According to earthly time and understanding, this difference prevents anxiety about how long transformation will take. William was 63 years old and had been farming the same 240-acre property in Kansas for 39 years. And the land had been in his family for 3 generations. And he took pride in continuing the agricultural tradition that his grandfather had established in 1928. But this year had brought challenges that threatened everything he had worked to preserve. The drought had lasted for 6 months, and William had watched his corn and soybean crops wither under the relentless summer sun, and he had spent $37,000 on irrigation equipment. But the well water was running low, and the weather forecasts offered no hope for rain, and the bank was beginning to express concern about the farm loan that was secured by the property and the upcoming harvest. William's wife, Martha, had been increasingly worried about their financial situation, and their daughter, Jennifer, who was 28 and worked as a teacher, had offered to help financially. But William's pride prevented him from accepting money from his child, and he lay awake at night, calculating how many more days they could continue without rain before the crop would be completely lost. On Monday evening, September 15th, William stood in his dying cornfield, watching the sunset paint the sky, orange and red, and the stalks that should have been green and tall were brown and brittle. And when he pulled an ear of corn from its stalk, it crumbled in his hands like dust, and William felt the weight of 3 generations of farming tradition resting on his shoulders. William had been raised in the Lutheran Church, and although he was not particularly religious, he had always believed that hard work and moral living would be rewarded, and he found himself questioning this belief as he watched his life's work disappearing day by day. And he wondered if God had forgotten about small farmers like him who were trying to make an honest living from the land. That night, William could not sleep, and at 2:30 a.m., he got up and walked out to the front porch of the farmhouse that his grandfather had built, and he sat in the wooden rocking chair where 3 generations of his family had watched storms approach across the flat Kansas landscape, and he spoke to the star-filled sky as if addressing his grandfather and God simultaneously. William had never prayed for anything specific before because he had been taught that prayer should be about gratitude and acceptance rather than requests. but his desperation overcame his theological reservations, and he said out loud, "I place this farm and this family in divine hands, and I trust that perfect solutions will come at the perfect time, and I ask for rain or whatever is needed for our highest good." William repeated these words 3 times, and then he experienced something that he had never felt before, which was a profound sense of peace that seemed to descend on him like a warm blanket. And for the first time in months, he was able to return to bed and sleep deeply and dreamlessly until sunrise, and when he awakened, he felt different, somehow more trusting and less anxious despite the unchanged circumstances. For the next 14 days, William continued to speak his prayer each night before sleep, and although there was still no sign of rain, he found that his anxiety about the situation had been replaced by an inexplicable confidence that everything would work out perfectly, and Martha noticed the change in his demeanor and commented that he seemed calmer despite their worsening circumstances. On the 15th night after William had begun his nightly practice, he had a vivid dream where he saw dark clouds building on the western horizon, and in the dream, he could smell the distinctive scent of approaching rain, and he could feel the electrical charge in the air that always preceded a storm, and when he awakened at 6:37 a.m. on Tuesday morning, he felt certain that rain was coming, even though the sky was clear. At 9:15 a.m., William noticed the first clouds he had seen in over 6 months forming on the western edge of his property, and by 11 a.m., the clouds had built into towering thunderheads that cast blessed shade over his parched fields, and at 2:23 p.m. the first raindrops began to fall, and William stood in his front yard with tears streaming down his face as the rain soaked his clothes and the ground around him. The rain continued for 3 days, with gentle, steady precipitation that soaked deep into the soil without causing erosion, and although it was too late to save the original crop, William was able to plant a cover crop that would protect the soil through winter and provide income through government conservation programs, and more importantly, a neighboring farmer offered to lease additional acreage to William for the following season. William realized that the rain had come at exactly the right time, not according to his desperate timeline, but according to divine timing that took into account factors he could not see. And the delay that had seemed like divine abandonment was actually divine protection, because if rain had come earlier, he would have continued struggling with the same limited approach to farming. The financial crisis forced William to explore new agricultural techniques and government programs that he had never considered, and these innovations not only solved his immediate problems, but positioned him for greater prosperity in future seasons. And William understood that divine timing always serves the highest good, even when it does not match human preferences. William continued his nightly practice of surrendering to divine timing long after the crisis had passed, because he had learned that there is an intelligence operating in the universe that sees the bigger picture and can orchestrate solutions that serve multiple purposes simultaneously. And trusting this intelligence eliminated anxiety about future challenges. Divine timing operates according to the principle of maximum benefit for all concerned, and what appears to be delay from the human perspective is often preparation for greater good than originally imagined. And during sleep, your subconscious aligns with this perfect timing, so that opportunities and solutions arrive when you are ready to receive them fully. The gestation period for manifestation varies according to the complexity of what is being created, and just as a flower has its natural blooming season that cannot be rushed through human effort, spiritual manifestations have their perfect timing that serves purposes beyond immediate gratification and patience. During the gestating period allows the full potential to unfold. While you sleep tonight, divine time is operating on your behalf, arranging circumstances and opportunities according to perfect order, and you do not need to know when or how your good will manifest, but only to trust that everything is unfolding according to timing that serves your highest development and greatest joy. Tomorrow when you awaken, you will be one day closer to the manifestation of your highest good, and each night of sleep brings you into greater alignment with divine timing, so that when your good appears, you will be ready to receive it fully and use it wisely for the benefit of yourself and all whose lives you touch. Every human being on earth spends approximately 1/3 of their life in sleep, and during these 8 hours, the individual consciousness temporarily merges with the collective unconscious, where all minds are connected beyond the boundaries of space and time. And this creates a vast network of sleeping souls who are simultaneously accessing divine intelligence and contributing their individual awareness to a shared field of infinite possibility. When you speak a decree before sleep, you are not only programming your individual subconscious, but also sending that intention into the collective field where it combines with the prayers and decrees of thousands of other souls who are seeking transformation and healing, and this amplification effect makes each individual decree exponentially more powerful because it is supported by the combined spiritual energy of the awakened dreamers. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this principle of collective spiritual power, and she taught her students that when they aligned their individual will with divine will, they automatically connected with others who were doing the same work. And she called this invisible network the communion of saints. But it includes anyone who has surrendered their personal agenda to the higher wisdom that operates through sleep and dreams. The collective field of dreamers operates like a spiritual internet where information and energy flow freely between all connected nodes, and when one person experiences breakthrough or healing, it makes similar breakthroughs easier for others because the path has been established in the collective consciousness, and resistance patterns that took years to dissolve for the first person may dissolve in days or hours. For subsequent travelers, Barbara was 57 years old and had been teaching high school English for 28 years when she received the diagnosis that changed everything, and the doctor explained that the tumor in her left breast was malignant and would require surgery, followed by several months of chemotherapy and radiation treatments. And Barbara sat in the sterile medical office, feeling as if she was listening to someone else's life being described. Barbara had always been healthy and active, and she took pride in her physical strength and energy, and the idea of becoming a cancer patient felt completely foreign to her identity. And when she drove home from the doctor's office that Tuesday afternoon, she felt as if she was living in a nightmare from which she could not awaken, and the familiar streets of her neighborhood seemed strange and unreal. Barbara lived alone in a small house that she had purchased after her divorce 10 years earlier, and she had created a peaceful sanctuary filled with books and plants and original artwork created by her students over the years. And that evening she sat in her favorite reading chair, trying to process the diagnosis and wondering how she would tell her family and friends, and whether she would survive the treatment. Barbara had been studying metaphysical principles for several years, and she owned books by Florence Scovel Shinn and other spiritual teachers. But she had never faced a situation that challenged her beliefs so dramatically, and she wondered if her faith in divine healing was strong enough to overcome a medical diagnosis that carried such serious implications. On Wednesday evening, Barbara decided to apply everything she had learned about spiritual law, and she spoke aloud to her empty living room and said, "I call upon all souls who understand divine healing to join me in decreeing perfect health, and I know that thousands of awakened dreamers will support this intention while they sleep, and I trust in the collective power of unified spiritual consciousness." Barbara felt somewhat self-conscious, speaking to an invisible audience, but she continued the practice each night before sleep, and she visualized herself surrounded by a circle of light, and she imagined that this circle included not only people she knew who practiced spiritual principles, but also countless souls around the world who were working with divine intelligence during their sleep. The first night, Barbara experienced unusual dreams, where she saw herself surrounded by figures dressed in white who were placing their hands on her body and sending streams of golden light into the area where the tumor was located. And when she awakened, she felt a warm, tingling sensation in her chest and a sense of peace that she had not experienced since receiving the diagnosis. By the third night, Barbara's dreams had become so vivid that they felt more real than her waking life, and she found herself in a vast cathedral filled with thousands of people who were all focused on sending healing energy to those in need. and Barbara understood without words that these were the awakened dreamers from around the world who were connected through the collective field of divine consciousness. Barbara continued to connect with the collective field of healers each night before sleep. And during the day, she noticed that people seemed to be drawn to offer her support and encouragement in ways that felt orchestrated by invisible intelligence, and strangers would approach her with stories of their own healing experiences. And she received books and articles about natural healing from unexpected sources. When Barbara returned to the hospital for her pre-bi surgical examination, 2 weeks after the initial diagnosis, the oncologist was surprised to discover that the tumor had decreased in size by approximately 70%, and additional tests revealed that the cancer cells appeared to be dying without any medical intervention. And the surgery that had been scheduled for the following Monday was postponed for further observation. Barbara understood that her individual intention for healing had been amplified by the collective intention of thousands of souls who were working with divine intelligence during sleep. And she realized that no one heals alone, but rather each healing is supported by the combined spiritual power of all who understand that health is the natural state of divine creation. The collective field of awakened dreamers operates continuously around the globe, because while some souls are sleeping, others are awake and praying. And the earth is surrounded by a constant stream of spiritual energy flowing from those who have aligned their consciousness with divine will. And this creates a supportive matrix that makes transformation easier for everyone. Barbara continued to participate consciously in the collective field long after her physical healing was complete, because she understood that by adding her spiritual energy to the network, she was helping to create breakthroughs for others who were facing similar challenges. And this understanding transformed her individual spiritual practice into a form of service to the collective awakening. When you align your individual consciousness with divine will during sleep, you automatically connect with the collective field of awakened souls who are doing the same work, and your personal transformation becomes part of a larger movement of consciousness that is lifting the entire planet into higher frequencies of love and healing and creative possibility. The network of awakened dreamers includes souls from every spiritual tradition and every culture who have discovered that surrender to divine intelligence during sleep is the most powerful form of prayer. And when you join this network through your nightly practice, you become part of an invisible community that transcends all boundaries of geography and religion and ethnicity. While you sleep tonight, you are connected to thousands of souls around the world who are decreeing healing and abundance and peace, and your individual intention is being amplified by the collective power of unified consciousness. And tomorrow you will awaken, knowing that you are supported by an invisible army of light workers who are committed to the highest good for all. Your dreams tonight are shared with the collective field of awakened consciousness, and the guidance you receive during sleep is influenced by the wisdom of all souls who have walked the path of spiritual transformation before you. And you can trust that you are never alone in your journey toward greater love and joy and creative expression. You have heard tonight about sleep as a sacred portal through which divine intelligence operates to transform your life while your conscious mind rests, and you have learned that the 8 hours you spend unconscious every night are actually the most conscious moments of your existence, when your soul has direct access to infinite wisdom and creative power. You have discovered that your subconscious mind during sleep has no resistance to divine truth, and therefore can accept and implement spiritual principles that your waking mind might doubt or reject. And you have learned that speaking decrees before sleep is infinitely more powerful than any daytime affirmation, because there is no mental interference with the natural flow of divine order. You have explored how your true divine identity emerges when your personality mask is set aside during sleep, and how this identity knows itself as naturally abundant and naturally loved and naturally powerful. And you have seen how connecting with this true identity before sleep allows it to express more fully through your daily life, regardless of external circumstances. You have learned that resistance patterns that seem overwhelming during waking consciousness dissolve effortlessly during sleep, when the ego security system powers down, and you have discovered that fighting resistance only strengthens it, while surrendering resistance to divine intelligence during sleep allows it to dissolve naturally, like ice melting in warm water. You have seen how divine intelligence communicates through dreams using symbols and metaphors that prepare you for upcoming transformations and guide you toward opportunities and relationships that serve your highest development. And you have learned that dreams are previews of coming attractions that help your conscious mind accept positive changes before they manifest in physical reality. You have understood that divine timing operates according to perfect order, where everything happens at exactly the right moment for maximum benefit, and you have learned that surrendering your personal timeline to divine timing eliminates anxiety and allows solutions to unfold with ease and grace, according to wisdom that serves purposes beyond immediate gratification. You have discovered that every soul who practices sacred sleep becomes part of a collective field of awakened dreamers, whose combined spiritual energy amplifies individual intentions and creates a supportive matrix that makes transformation easier for everyone. And you have learned that your personal healing contributes to the healing of the entire world. And now I will share with you the story that demonstrates all these principles working together in one life. And this is the story of Elizabeth, who at 55 years old experienced what physicians called a complete nervous breakdown, and who discovered through the depths of her crisis the ultimate power of sacred sleep to restore not just mental health, but entire life purpose and spiritual awakening. Elizabeth had been an executive vice president at a major pharmaceutical company for 12 years, and her life consisted of 70-hour work weeks and constant travel and high-stress decision-making that affected the lives of thousands of employees. And although she was financially successful and professionally respected, she had been running on adrenaline and caffeine for so long that she had forgotten what natural energy felt like. The breakdown began on a Thursday morning in March, when Elizabeth was preparing for a presentation to the board of directors, and suddenly she could not remember the words she needed to speak, and her hands began shaking uncontrollably, and she felt as if she was having a heart attack, even though all medical tests showed normal cardiac function, and she was taken by ambulance to the hospital emergency room. Elizabeth spent the next 6 weeks in a psychiatric facility, where she was diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder and clinical depression, and chronic insomnia, and she was prescribed multiple medications that made her feel disconnected from her own thoughts and emotions. And although the doctors assured her that she would recover with proper treatment, Elizabeth felt as if she was disappearing into a chemical fog. Elizabeth's private room in the facility had white walls and a single window that looked out onto a parking lot, and she would lie in the narrow bed for hours, staring at the ceiling while various medications flowed through her IV line. And the medical staff spoke about her as if she was not present, and she began to wonder if she would ever feel human again. Elizabeth's sister Karen visited every day and brought books and magazines and flowers, but Elizabeth could barely concentrate enough to read a single paragraph, and conversations required enormous effort because the medications made her thoughts feel thick and slow, and she began to believe that her mind had been permanently damaged by years of chronic stress. On Thursday afternoon of her 5th week in the facility, Karen brought a small paperback book titled Your Word is Your Wand by Florence Scovel Shinn, and she placed it on Elizabeth's bedside table and said, "This book helped me through my divorce, and maybe it will help you too." And although Elizabeth had no interest in reading anything, she appreciated Karen's thoughtfulness. That evening, Elizabeth picked up the book simply because she was tired of staring at the ceiling, and she opened to a random page and read about sacred sleep and the teaching that while the conscious mind rests, the subconscious has direct access to divine intelligence and can reorganize entire energy patterns according to spoken decrees. And something about these words penetrated the medication fog and sparked a tiny flame of hope. Elizabeth read that Florence Scovel Shinn had taught students to speak healing decrees before sleep, and to trust that divine intelligence would work through their subconscious minds throughout the night to restore whatever had been damaged or depleted, and Elizabeth decided that she had nothing to lose by experimenting with this approach because traditional medical treatment was not providing the results she desperately needed. That night, before the nurse administered Elizabeth's sleep medication, she spoke quietly to the darkness of her hospital room and said, "My mind is healed by divine intelligence while I sleep, and my nervous system is restored to perfect balance, and I awaken tomorrow closer to complete wellness." And she repeated these words 3 times, feeling foolish but also determined. The first night, Elizabeth noticed that although the medication still made her groggy, her sleep felt somehow different, more restorative and peaceful, and she experienced vivid dreams of walking through a beautiful garden filled with flowers and sunshine. And when she awakened, she felt a tiny spark of energy that she had not experienced in months. Elizabeth continued speaking healing decrees before sleep. Each night, and by the end of the first week, she noticed that her appetite had improved, and she was able to concentrate enough to complete simple crossword puzzles, and the constant anxiety that had plagued her for months began to diminish gradually but noticeably. By the second week, Elizabeth was able to reduce her daytime medications without experiencing panic attacks, and her sleep became deeper and more natural, and her dreams were filled with images of recovery and renewal, and she began to believe for the first time since her breakdown that complete healing was possible. On the 14th night, Elizabeth experienced the most profound dream of her life, where she found herself standing in a great cathedral filled with golden light, and she understood without words that this cathedral represented her true spiritual identity that had never been damaged by stress or mental illness, and she felt a presence beside her that communicated healing and wholeness directly into her awareness. Elizabeth awakened from this dream feeling completely different, as if she had been reborn during the night, and when the morning nurse arrived to administer medications, Elizabeth announced that she no longer needed them, and although the medical staff was skeptical, they agreed to monitor her condition without pharmaceutical intervention. Within 48 hours, Elizabeth was discharged from the facility with a clean bill of mental health, and the psychiatrist admitted that he had never seen such rapid recovery from severe anxiety and depression. And Elizabeth returned to her corporate position with a completely transformed understanding of what true health and success actually meant. Elizabeth realized that her breakdown had been a spiritual crisis disguised as a mental health emergency, and that sacred sleep had connected her with the divine intelligence that could heal not just her symptoms, but the underlying disconnection from her true purpose that had created the crisis. And she understood that her experience was meant to be shared with others who were struggling with similar challenges. Elizabeth left her corporate position 6 months later and began teaching workshops about sacred sleep and spiritual recovery. And she discovered that her personal healing had prepared her to guide others through similar transformations, and her breakdown became the foundation for a life of service that brought meaning and joy. That her previous success had never provided. Elizabeth's story demonstrates that sacred sleep can restore not just individual health, but entire life purpose, and that the darkest moments of crisis often precede the greatest spiritual breakthroughs when we surrender our personal will to the divine intelligence that operates through our subconscious minds during the sacred hours of rest. And now you will receive the same activation that Elizabeth received during her healing journey, and the same connection to divine intelligence that restored her mind and revealed her true purpose. And you do not need to experience crisis to access this power, because sacred sleep is available to every soul who speaks consciously to the infinite wisdom that never sleeps. Even if you are sleeping as you hear these words, there is a part of you that never sleeps, and this eternal aspect of your being is fully awake and aware, and it hears every word I speak now, and it has the power to implement everything you have learned tonight about sacred sleep and divine intelligence. And this part of you exists beyond the boundaries of your physical body and personal history and temporary circumstances. Your eternal self has been waiting for this moment when you would remember the truth about sleep and dreams and the divine intelligence that operates through your subconscious mind, And tonight, you have received activation codes that will transform your relationship with the 8 hours you spend in sleep every night. And these codes are now being installed in your consciousness at the deepest level. Breathe deeply with me now, and even if you are sleeping, your body knows how to breathe, and your breath connects you to the infinite source of life that sustains every cell in your body. And with each breath, you are drawing in not just oxygen, but divine energy. And with each exhale, you are releasing any beliefs or patterns that have prevented you from accessing your full spiritual power. Allow your breathing to become slower and deeper and more rhythmic, as if you are breathing in harmony with the heartbeat of the universe, and feel yourself sinking into a state of consciousness where you are completely receptive to divine truth and completely aligned with the highest good for yourself and all whose lives you touch. Feel yourself surrounded by the presence of infinite love and infinite wisdom and infinite creative power. And know that this presence is not separate from you, but is the very essence of who you are, beneath all the layers of personality and conditioning and limitation that you have accepted as real. And tonight these layers are dissolving in the ocean of divine consciousness. I will now speak the words that activate sacred sleep permanently in your consciousness. And these words are not just concepts, but living spiritual energy that transforms everything they touch. And you do not need to do anything but allow these words to enter the deepest levels of your being, where they will work continuously to align you with your highest good. My sleep is sacred, and every night when I surrender to rest, I enter the temple of divine consciousness, where infinite intelligence operates through my subconscious mind to heal and restore and manifest everything that serves my highest development and the highest good of all. My sleep is sacred, and my dreams are communications from divine mind that prepare me for transformation and guide me toward opportunities and relationships that serve my spiritual evolution. And I receive this guidance with gratitude and trust and perfect understanding. My sleep is sacred, and while my body rests, my soul collaborates directly with infinite creative power to reorganize my entire energy field according to divine order, and I awaken each morning already aligned with whatever I have decreed the night before. My dreams create reality, because during sleep I am connected to the divine mind that knows no limitation and sees all possibilities simultaneously. And what I experience in dreams begins the manifestation process that completes itself in physical form according to perfect divine timing. My dreams create reality, and the symbols and stories that unfold during sleep are purposeful communications that show me the path to my highest good, and I pay attention to my dreams as sacred mail from the universe that arrives exactly when I need specific guidance. My dreams create reality, and I trust the intelligence that operates through my subconscious during sleep to arrange circumstances and opportunities that serve not only my individual good, but the collective awakening of all consciousness on earth. I am always connected to Source because my true identity exists in the realm of divine consciousness that never sleeps and never experiences limitation. And this identity expresses through my personality with increasing clarity and power as I align my human will with divine will. I am always connected to Source, and even during the deepest sleep, my eternal self remains aware and active, and continues to receive guidance and energy and healing from infinite intelligence. And I awaken each morning renewed and restored and more aligned with my true purpose. I am always connected to Source, and my individual consciousness is part of the collective field of awakened souls who are working together to transform the earth through love and service, and my personal healing contributes to the healing of all humanity. I am awakened consciousness, having a human experience, and I use my physical life as an opportunity to express divine love and wisdom and creativity through unique talents and abilities that serve the highest good of all creation. I am awakened consciousness, and I understand that everything I experience is designed to support my spiritual evolution and the evolution of all souls, and I meet every circumstance with trust and gratitude, knowing that divine intelligence is orchestrating perfect lessons for my development. I am awakened consciousness, and I move through each day, aware that I am both human and divine, and I honor both aspects of my nature by caring for my physical needs while remaining connected to my spiritual source through prayer and meditation and sacred sleep I create while I sleep. Because during sleep, my consciousness merges with infinite creative power, and together we design solutions and opportunities and relationships that manifest in perfect timing, according to divine wisdom that sees the bigger picture beyond my limited human perspective. I create while I sleep, and every night I enter sacred partnership with divine intelligence that loves me unconditionally and wants only my highest good and greatest joy and most complete expression of my divine potential. And this partnership produces miracles that transform my life and bless everyone I encounter. I create while I sleep, and I do not need to understand the mechanism, but only to trust the process and to speak my truth before surrendering to rest, knowing that divine intelligence will implement whatever serves my spiritual evolution and practical needs simultaneously. Divine intelligence flows through my rest like a river of liquid light that carries away everything that no longer serves my highest good and brings in everything that supports my continued awakening and my service to the divine plan that unfolds through all conscious beings. Divine intelligence flows through my rest and reorganizes my thoughts and beliefs and emotions and physical energy according to divine order that creates harmony between my human desires and my spiritual purpose and allows me to manifest abundance that serves not just myself, but all whose lives I touch. Divine intelligence flows through my rest and connects me to the collective field of awakened consciousness, where I receive support and guidance from thousands of souls who are walking the same path of spiritual transformation and service to divine love. And so your sleep is now a sacred portal through which infinite intelligence operates to transform your life according to divine order. And you can trust this process completely because it serves only love and healing and creative expression that blesses the entire world. And so your dreams now create reality according to the highest good for yourself and all concerned. And you can surrender into sleep each night, knowing that while you rest, Divine Mind is arranging perfect solutions to every challenge and perfect opportunities for your continued growth. And so you are forever awakened consciousness, expressing through human form, and you can move through each day aware of your divine nature, while fully engaged with your earthly responsibilities and relationships and creative projects that serve the evolution of consciousness. Even in deepest sleep, you are awake to your true identity as divine being, temporarily inhabiting physical form for the purpose of learning and serving and loving and creating. And this awareness transforms every aspect of your human experience into sacred practice. And so it is sealed in divine consciousness that never changes and never fails. And your sacred sleep is now activated permanently and will continue to work for your highest good throughout all the days and nights of your earthly journey. Rest now, awakened one, and know that the law works while you dream, and every hour of sleep brings you deeper into alignment with divine will and closer to the complete manifestation of your highest potential and greatest joy. The law works while you dream, and you can surrender completely to the intelligence that loves you more than you can imagine and wants only your perfect happiness and most complete spiritual fulfillment. And this intelligence operates continuously through your sacred sleep. Rest now and let divine love carry you into the deepest, most restorative sleep of your life, and awaken tomorrow knowing that everything has changed because you have remembered who you truly are and why you are here, and how to collaborate with infinite intelligence through the sacred portal of sleep.